So welcome back to another Brewster podcast. This time with me I have Tyler Simmons, who's done this quite a few times before, the GM of Jacksonville. I guess say hi, Tyler.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Ted.
Yeah, welcome back, man. And then Brandon's here for Brandon Slouck is here for the first time. Charm City's GM and the first GM of a franchise team to make the playoffs. So maybe he'll have some things to tell the rest of the useless expansion GMs how to get their act together. I don't know. Anyway,
Yeah, thanks for having me, by the way. I'll jump in and say that too.
Yeah, we got to figure out a way to get visual cues on these things because it's just goofy and weird. We were talking before the show, but we thought we'd start off with maybe you guys giving your impressions of the other's team. Might be a little interesting. So I guess Tyler, why don't you go first and tell us what you think about Charm City? Kind of where they are in the upcoming year.
Sure. Charm City, obviously, Brandon's done a phenomenal job building that team up quickly. Getting a lot of very talented young guys in that expansion draft. We were talking before we started that we thought he had the best, EBA expansion draft portion of it, and then he even picked up a fairly useful bat in the actual expansion draft of all of the BBA cast-offs. They have the best pitcher, in my opinion, in the entire Johnson League in Egbert Benner. I think that's how you say it, who was with Paris when I actually took over Paris way back when I started in 2025. He's finally developed and has become a perennial, Nebraska contender. So they've got definitely the top of the rotation. You're not going to have a whole lot of losing streaks with him. There's a few other questions in the rotation behind that going into this next year. You've got Leon coming up, who, I don't know if he's going to be playing. Maybe, Brandon, you can talk if you think he's going to be getting a shot or if he's still going to be sitting in the minors for another year or so.
I think I'm just going to see how he does in the spring. I called him up, and he immediately got hurt. So I think he's about ready. I think he's close to ready. If I call him up, he'll probably be like my fourth or fifth starter. But if he's not very good in the spring, I'll probably let him go back to AAA for a little bit.
Yeah, really outside of Egbert, though, you've got Arturo Reyes, who's a fine middle rotation guy. He's not going to light the world on fire, but he's a high control pitcher that's going to, try to limit the guys on base. Outside of those three guys, I'm not really sure who's going to be in the rotation. I would assume that you're going to be going hard for Ramirez in free agency. You don't have to say anything about that, tip your hand or anything, but I would think that he would be one of the guys, or some of those other kind of mid-rotation guys that are available in free agency. I can't think of the guy from San Antonio right now that's spent a number of years in San Antonio that's out there too. That's another good free agent. The bullpen is looking okay. Wilmot is the closer. He looks a lot like our closer, actually, for Jacksonville. He's a guy with a lot of stuff in average movement and control, but he'll be able to get the job done. He had 51 saves to lead the league last year, so obviously he knows how to close out ball games. So if they can get the ball to him with a lead, they should do pretty well. Outside of that, there's, kind of just middle of the pack, I would say, as far as bullpens go. Really where they shine is the lineup. You got Dan Logan as a catcher who's got just tons of power and on-base percentage. Kirschbaum is a really good third baseman. I really like the outfield too. Probably the best outfield in the Johnson League and possibly in the entire BBA. So they've got a really good rotation, or a really good lineup, and true number one at the top of their rotation, and a pretty good closer. So I think they will be good for quite a few years. All those guys that I talked about are all young too. Really the oldest hitter they have is Salazar, who's only 31 and really still a stud. So
yeah, and that's kind of what I said. I mean, you hit all kind of the high points there. Brandon's definitely probably excited about his cap space. Got a chance to make his team a good deal better. Brandon, I'm gonna guess the thing you wish the most is that Aguilar was ready right now.
Aguilar, yeah, he's going to be a little bit.
He is, but I
Um,
think he's. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you.
no, yeah, go ahead. I didn't have much to
No,
say
just
other than he's going to be a little bit.
right. Well, I mean, he's the rest of your core is young enough that they'll still be good by the time he gets there, and you'll have that nice 1-2 punch you need, kind of regardless of what else you find.
Yeah, I think you're right. I do have a lot of, like you guys have highlighted, I got a lot of young guys. My problem is going to be in the next probably 2 seasons when they all start hitting arbitration. Um, I might have to ship some guys I don't want just to stay under the cap. 'Cause I think I was looking at it earlier. I think a couple guys hit their first year next year, and like someone like Anderson, they're projecting about $4 million for his first year, and that's going to go up if he puts up another year like he did this past season.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know if we'll get to it a little bit later, but that Brooklyn trade, I'm glad that you weren't the one that got those two pitchers, because to have Benner and then Gonzalez and Chandler would have really been pretty scary for the rest of the division.
Well, I was approached about at least one of them, but I was just looking at my future commitments, and just I wouldn't have been able to make it work, I don't think.
Right. That's that trade got a lot of grief about the amount of talent or the disparity in talent that switched hands, but I think those contracts and the risk on the age of the players is the biggest part of that. There just aren't that many teams that can absorb that kind of financial risk. They just can't do it.
Yeah, it takes a special team to be able to take on all those contracts. It looked a lot like the trades when I picked up Sunshine and Chip a couple of years ago, and I didn't give up a ton of talent to get those two guys, but it's two teams that were looking to clear some cap space, and I had a bunch of cap space, and it I guess worked out. We won a championship. Neither one of them really contributed all that much to the championship, but so yeah, I guess it's kind of 6-1, half a dozen the other. But neither one of those guys, I don't think, netted what everybody was thinking they would net. But when you look at a mid-30s pitcher, you just never know when they're going to fall apart. They could last for 4 more years, or they could last for 4 more months.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right. Well, I think we covered that pretty reasonably. I guess Brandon, you got any thoughts on Jacksonville and what you think of that team this year?
Yeah. I mean, they're still a good team. Clearly, they took me. I don't want to put salt in the wound with Tyler about our series in the playoffs. Honestly, it irritates me when people do that. So I'm just going to say, they took us to 7 games when, I mean, they're a good team. They mainly just started off slow like they did the year they won the championship. Their lineup is one of the better ones in the league. I think it's better than mine. They got Navarro, who is one of the top players overall in the league. Great hit. The only downside is his eye, but who cares? He's going to hit 350 and hit 40 home runs.
Well, how scary could he be? Like if he ended up 10-8-5, like he could have been.
Yeah, I was. Oh my gosh, I was so concerned. All of my first round draft picks have just lumped like crazy. Every single one of them, except for him. And he started to lump when he was hitting really well, like single A, double A, and was just tearing the cover off the ball. And all of a sudden, those potentials started to fall down, and I was like, "Oh, great, here we go again." But he's actually held off.
Yeah, I just noticed that because I don't think I was either not around yet or I was a EBA GM maybe when you drafted him, so I didn't notice what he was when you drafted him. But I'm seeing that now. But yeah, the little bit of a lump, like you said, I would have been concerned too. But he's clearly doesn't really affect him. He's a stud.
Yep.
And power all up and down the lineup, and he just got another power hitter in Sandcastle. So he's got power all around. The offense is just good all around. Looking at his defensive numbers, I'm not sure how much, it doesn't look like it was the best this year, but looking at some of these guys, I feel like they should be better than what they gave you. I don't know if you have anything you want to say on that.
Well, Rutledge is a black hole wherever he plays, it seems like. So that's always just going to be a problem. And he actually had an error in that Game 7 that extended that created the first set of runs that you guys scored. But Gonzalez and Naboru were actually really good.
Yeah.
Braun looks like he might be falling off a little bit. He might be going from possibly the best shortstop to just a pretty good shortstop. But I sacrificed a lot defensively in the outfield, trying to get Ramos another year out of him, and then injuries to Chavez throughout the season. There were a couple of little times where he was on the DL that really hurt my outfield defense. I ended up playing Hawkeye Pierce, who has completely lost his legs in the field, and that meant Braddock had to play center field. So we were pretty crap all the way across the board there for a couple of 2-week stretches. But I think getting Sandcastle will help that out a lot. We'll have Braddock and Bucage. Yeah, well, that could happen too. I'm hoping he can get at least one more year out of him, like Sunshine out in right field. But I was trying like hell to find a third baseman because Naboru actually can be a really good left fielder. But I just haven't been able to find somebody that's allowed me to shift him out of the infield. So
I don't know. Third base has been tough recently. I mean, I'm thrilled that I managed to sign Boogie on the cheap, even though he can't play third anymore. I'll still probably just leave him there, just because it's a tough position right now. Whereas we're overflowing with second basemen. Like I can't get rid of one. I think Brandon's the only guy in the league looking for a second baseman. There's just everybody else is 4 guys that can play the position.
So what?
Yeah, the funniest thing about the team to me is how my view on catchers have changed since I did that study a few years ago. I used to think that catcher defense was nothing. So I've had guys in there that had 1 rating or 2 rating at catcher, and now this year I picked up Scholes to try and just go with the no-hit all defense catcher, trying to help that pitching staff.
Did you notice anything?
Well, his arm and Robertson's arm really limit the run game, even in this hyper speed game that's going on right now, where it seems like everybody's stealing 100 bases. They both were able to keep the steal attempts down under 150, I believe. So that was one huge thing, just keeping guys in check on the bases, not giving up those extra bases, turning singles and walks into doubles. That really helped out a lot, I think.
So I agree. I think the lineup in Jacksonville is still one of the stronger in the league. They got that great core, good complementary players. I do think you're not to take this away from Brandon, but I think your pitching staff is okay. It's you're kind of like you get one injury and the rug gets pulled out from under you because you've got a bunch of 2 and 3 guys, but they're all a little rickety.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot there. Tonks actually was pretty good most of the year and has been pretty good in the playoffs, but Crow really his stuff just kind of fell apart. And Mendez is kind of what I figured he would be. The really interesting one to me is Ruben Nunez. He picked up a little bit of extra movement at the end of the year, so he might be somebody that gets a shot as the 5th starter.
That could be interesting. So do you think, which you guys, well, I don't want to put you on the spot like that. I think you're both challenging for the division. And then the other team is obviously Montreal, and we'll get to them in a little bit. But we touched on, I don't remember if we've done it. Well, we've done it on the show already a little bit. We touched on the Brooklyn pitching trade. And just before we get any details about them, I want to ask you guys what you think about their playoff chances.
Yeah, I think one thing that I'm really going to be looking at with Brooklyn is, last year he did so much with not much talent in the rotation and switching guys around and moving guys in and out and looking at matchups and really doing a lot of micromanaging, trying to get the most out of everybody. It'll be interesting to see if that approach continues and if that approach, if he can make those pitchers even better, or if you kind of screw around with them when you have more talented players and you start trying to bench them because of a matchup not looking good or something like that. Does he over manage that team? That'll be kind of interesting to watch.
I could see that's something that's definitely something to look at, but I think he was doing it out of necessity. So I would hope he tones that back a little bit now with having two legit starters, and having a better rotation now. He doesn't have to do the mix and matching and creating smoke and mirrors now with he's got two proven starters.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I know Allen's done some phenomenal work with less talented teams. When he won the championship as a 2026 or 2027, that team was not championship quality team, but he really did a number of really smart things in the playoffs to get the most out of those guys. And then he got more talented and the team won less. So I hope that doesn't happen for him here. But I think they've got a really good shot. They've got a lot of really high contact guys. He's been focusing on defense. Their defense looks like it's going to be really, really good. So, and they run like crazy.
Yeah, he needs to get a little more power, it looks like, though, just to drive in a lot of these guys who are getting on base with their contact and stuff. He was 14th in home runs, 10th in runs. I think if he could get his home runs around middle of the pack, he should at least get it, probably get his runs up the middle pack as well. And with the pitching improvement, he should be a couple wins better for sure.
And that's where I kind of am too. I don't know that those two guys make this team a lot better. On paper they do, but I think we both feel like that team might have overachieved just through the management.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, the only starter that he used last year that I would want in my rotation is Jose Morales. So now he just has two guys in Jose Morales. It's still not a great rotation.
It's better than one guy and nobody else, though.
Yeah, it's true. But I'm also with you on the power bats. And he built a park to play the contact. He did that on purpose, and it works for him in the defense. And there are some middling power guys, Rechtenberg, Dickinson, Salazar. They're going to hit some doubles, but I'm with you too. He lacks the kind of run producing thumper that just it's kind of a no brainer to plug in there in the middle.
Yeah, what's going to be difficult for Allen in Brooklyn is you've got to expect Montreal's going to win a couple more games. Carolina's getting better, and then you always wonder what's going to happen with Atlantic City. Maybe he can get a couple of wins there, but it might be one of those things where they might play better and do, have a better season, but still only win a couple of more games and still kind of be really tight on the playoff race.
Yeah, I think looking at the moves some of the teams are making, and now it seems like everybody is getting more aggressive in our division. I think we'll probably be the strongest division next year because, I think Carolina could have a chance to get around 500. We could conceivably have 6 teams be 500, though our top team might not win 96 just because of how much better everybody else could be.
Yeah, you guys are definitely in the Johnson. You're the competitive division. There's still some teams that are a little warty over in the Southern. I do think the Atlantic. I can't remember the names of these new divisions. I don't know why they're not that new. The Heartland. They're pretty nasty too. I mean, the Louisville, Twin City, Yellow Springs, Madison. I was talking to Stu about this. Any one of those teams could win 100 games next year. Put them in a worse division, and 3 of them could win 100 games. They're all pretty loaded in different ways.
Yeah, I would say 1 to 4. They're probably a little bit stronger, but what adds it for the JLA, just for the interesting part of it, is just that 5th team is so competitive, and possibly Carolina, depending on how things develop during the offseason for them. If you all of a sudden got 6 teams that are competitive, it turns out like what was that? Was that your division? Was that the Pacific a couple of years ago where it seemed like everybody was in the playoff race?
Like you're trying to predict it, and like they will have 80 to 93 wins, and that was the prediction for every team.
Yeah. I think it was like 6 of the teams were in the top 13 or 14 in the power rankings for most of the season.
At the All-Star break, we had 5 teams within like 4 games of first. And
so that could be the JLA this year, really.
You're right, it could. So, we touched on this earlier, but moving on to Montreal, you guys are probably more aware of it because you're playing in that division, but I don't know if the rest of us are paying attention to that, like, 3-headed monster of Gilstrom, Nightmare Guerrero, and Gung Ho. Maybe the best 3 hitters to ever play together, or if not, they're in the conversation. It's incredible.
Yeah, those 3 are infinitely scary. When he picked up Guerrero, that was scary enough, and that was before Lafitte had developed and come up, and now he's come up and been even better than Cisco Guerrero was. And they're all under 30. It's going to be difficult to play against those guys as long as he wants to be competitive.
Yeah, you're talking about Navarro for you lumping and all your picks lumping. It seems like for him, picks, no matter who he traded for, they all stayed at whatever their potential was, or when he got them, or improved. It's just a bunch of studs.
Yeah, John's a really smart GM. I played with him in a league that I commissioned. He was really good then. And I remember when I came in, the joke was, don't ever trade with John because he will only trade if he's going to win. Like, he always wins his trades no matter what.
But you don't know it at the time. Like, they don't.
No, you come out of it thinking that you had an amazing trade. You're like, this is great. I got the best. I really took one over on him. Everybody's talking about how great he was, and I beat him. And then you turn around 2 years later and you look at the trade and you're like, well, son of a bitch.
Yeah. He got something in addition. I think Gilstrom, he traded Sandcastle, I believe, or was it?
Yeah, I wasn't around then, but I know, yeah.
No, he got Gilstrom for Mike Davis, as you're all trying to remember who Mike Davis is.
Yeah, but on the flip side for John, his rotation has just had terrible luck the last 2 or 3 years. Flores looked like he was going to be the next ace, and now is just another guy. And then now I'm trying to blank on his
Stanza's retired.
Stanza
right?
just completely, get injured all year for like 3 straight years. So he's had some bad luck too. But it'll be interesting to see who he gets to replace that. He's got quite a bit of talent still coming up. Troop is a young guy that's got just off the charts stuff. He's got probably the best curveball in the game. It's like a mini Rich Hill is what he's looking like. So it'll be interesting to see how he does. He'll probably have some lumps early in his career. He was struggled last year when he got his call up, but a year or two, I think he'll be a top pitcher in the league too.
Oh, and with that offense, the pitching just has to be good enough.
Yep.
He can win 90 games easily.
Yeah, I was gonna say he just needs to get that starter ERA under 5.
Right.
If it's like 4.75,
yeah,
he's gonna be really good again. Yeah, I honestly didn't think he would win 93 this past season because I didn't like his pitching at all. Knowing how good his offense is, and it's just one of those things. Most teams, no matter how good your offense is, you need some sort of pitching, but that hasn't been the case for him.
Yeah, John's really good at turning over the middle part of his roster and, keeping everything going. So I think Montreal's going to be a tough team to beat every single year unless he gets frustrated not winning the championship and blows it all up. He's really the only one that can stop this kind of 5-year run.
That might happen. Like I saw him, for example, trade Sandcastle and a couple other guys when they were 28. 27, 28 years old, because he just looked at the team and said, I don't like this team. And here he is now, at the end of another ridiculous run.
He's put it out there. He was considering it. on whether it be the league chatter for Sims, or I can't remember where exactly he did it. He might even did it in the team news. But it could be one of those deals where if this year ends kind of like how it did last season, where he makes it and then goes right out or whatever, next off season might be that year he decides to do that.
Yeah. Prospects are just so volatile in this version of Out of the Park. It's like, it's very risky to trade a guy that's in his 20s. And even if you're getting a couple of amazing prospects, there's such a low chance that those guys go on to be amazing players, the way that a Gilstrom did, the way that a Flores did,
Right.
So that's the other thing too.
I think the other thing that's changed a little bit, and this I think showed up in 17, maybe in 18, or maybe it's a setting rec change, but all of our prospects are 16 years old now. It's not like we used to be getting 18-year-olds and the occasional college kid. The entire draft is kids that can't drive or kids can't drink.
It seemed like that was something that Matt changed consciously, that he kind of made a change to do that, to have guys peak or hit the majors at a younger age. But yeah, and those young guys are just so volatile and Out of the Park.
Yeah, I think some of my best prospects are not my first round picks. I mean, I hit on like Anderson and Ortiz is my DH, but like Aguilar, I think was a 4th round pick, and he's looking really good. Just a lot of these guys that you're seeing as top prospects or taking over the league weren't some of the top guys picked. Even if they were still first rounders, they were more like first rounders back end of the round.
Right. So you maybe got to adopt a little bit of strategy of more quantity over quality and dumping guys out of your minors. Quick.
I can tell you, I actually didn't like picking high because I wasn't liking the guys that were going, because I knew I never had I think my highest pick might have been 3rd when I was, being an expansion team. And, your center fielder or something, there was always a decent center fielder. I knew I wasn't getting that guy. The best hitter, there haven't been that many good pitchers that are, worthy of taking that high. And if there are, they go in front of me. So that's why I'm so loaded on DHs and corner outfielders, because I was just taking best available. But there were guys I liked who were like shortstops who were more like mid to back end of the round, but I just didn't think it'd be smart to take that high.
It's tough. It's tough to take that player there that's a little, more.
Yeah, so I'm kind of happy I'm more towards the back now, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, a good look at that is Valencia back in 2028 when they took Harlan Moore in the top. No, I guess it was top 5. I thought, but now that I'm looking at him, he picked him 6th. He was basically developed. He was basically an 8-2-4 contact, power discipline guy with just amazing defense, and he picked him up way ahead of guys with bigger talents, but he was already ready to go, and he was basically ready to step in. Sure, he might not be the best shortstop in the league, but that you just picked up somebody that can compete for Zimmer awards and can be at the top of your lineup. And it turned out to be a really good pick. A lot of people killed him for it, and I wasn't really a big fan of it, but that's just kind of the way Out of the Park is now. He was close to being developed. He was a smart pick. But then you got somebody like Howard, for me, who was almost developed and just fell apart at 24. So you just never really know either, I guess.
Well, speaking of volatile things, let's move on to Atlantic City. I think that team's in trouble this year. There's one thing that stands out, and that's their budget or their salary situation. They're over the cap right now. They're at $111.2 million. And looking at their roster, they don't have a lineup. Like, they don't have position players.
Well, they're over the cap right now, and they don't have 25 players. They don't have 25, not even 27. They've got 24 guys with a contract right now.
Right.
So, they're in some big-time cap problems. And next year you've got Cannon, who, I don't know, is he possibly a free agent next year, or is it in 2 years? It's in 2 years.
2 years, yeah.
So they're already close to the cap with him, so they can't. A lot of times it's nice to get an extension on a guy like that right now before he hits free agency. You might be able to get a cheap free agency year, but they're going to have to wait until he's already in that last arbitration year before they can even extend him. So that could hurt him too.
Yeah, he just traded Dominguez, right? Who was $4.5 million. So I think it was Dominguez he just traded.
Right. So now,
So
he
should
he's
be
under the cap,
but
but now he's got 23 guys on the roster.
yeah. But still, yeah, exactly. And it's kind of a shame because the guys he has like in his lineup, they're all young guys. They've put up decent numbers. Like he's got a nice for his lineup. He's got a nice young core of guys who could lead him there. It's just like you guys said, he doesn't have the money to supplement him at this point. I know he's trying to trade. I guess you say Bido or Bido, but I mean, it's going to be hard to ship him out for almost $14 million when he's basically a DH at this point.
And I wouldn't trade Vito. Out of the guys on his roster, he's got some, young kind of middling guys, but Vito's average looks ugly, but he's still getting on base at like a 380, 400 rate and hitting 40 home runs.
Yeah.
Those power, eye guys, they age pretty well.
Even if his contact drops off, he's still going to be like a 320, 330 OBP, 30, 40 home run player. He's still a good DH.
If I was, I don't know what I would do with that team because he's put himself in a tough spot, but I might consider doing anything I can to move Correa because there's where you get the flexibility to fill out a roster. The other option would be selling everything that's not bolted down, eating the contracts on Lopez and Correa, and expecting to compete in 5 years. But that's rough.
Yeah, I don't know if you can. I mean, you kind of went all in on these, 32 to 34 seasons with those contracts. But I mean, if you could find anybody to take, Lopez is the one nobody's going to take. I mean, nobody would take him, but like even if you had some cash to send with him, that's the thing is there's just so much guaranteed. If it was $30 million this year and it dropped down to like 15 the rest of the way, you could find somebody to take him. But geez, you got $60 million the next 2 years.
Yeah.
Correa's not any better. I mean, he's 30, 32, 25, 22.
No, but Correa is going to be Correa for the next 4 years, where Lopez is already losing velocity. He's dropped 2 miles an hour in less than a year.
Yeah, I don't see any way Lopez opts out either. I mean, it's only 1 year after the opt out, but I don't see that happening either. Just because he's already 35, and like you said, his velocity's dropping. Chances are, even if he makes it through 20, the next 2 seasons, fine. 2035 might not be the best year, and so 2035 is when it could get even uglier, just because he might not be given that production anymore. It could happen sooner, since, like you said, that velocity is already dropping. But yeah, Correa is definitely more palatable just because of his age.
But that's the reason I would say, because this team is constructed has 1 or 2 years in it, right? Like 35, 36 are going to be a disaster no matter what.
Right.
And the reason I might try to move Correa is maybe you could. That's
one
you can.
I get what you're saying. It's a crazy amount of money, but because he is only 31 as opposed to 35, someone might be willing to do that. I know Brooklyn got 2 pitchers, but that's the team he probably should have talked to, because maybe if he could have got to Brooklyn before Stu did, maybe he could have pawned them off there instead.
So how many games do you think they win this year?
I would say they would be between 80 and 83. I really just don't see the team being able to ride that Pythagorean wave that they had early in the year. I mean, they had so many 1-run wins, so many walk-off wins that were just like, I think they were like a +9 or a +10 at one point.
Yeah, they're tough to judge just because the rotation, even if he has to do something to clear some money, it's still a good rotation.
Sure, they are
Tyler,
three good lefties. Yeah, that's
yeah, I mean, Tyler said he's saying 81, 83. I'd probably go a little higher end where they could probably win 86, 87. But it also depends on if they can find a way to fill out the rest of their lineup.
Injuries, right? Like this team
Yeah,
clearly won't weather any injuries at all.
yeah,
no,
he's not.
no.
Yeah, he's not going to have any depth just because he can't. He can't afford it.
Yeah, and the worst possible thing that could happen is Correa or Lopez go down, and you're paying those guys $30 million to sit on the DL.
Yep.
Come back probably lesser versions of themselves.
Yeah, so
Horrible.
I mean, I hope it works out for him. That was a ballsy move. It turned the team from, a team that was possibly going to maybe compete 3 or 4 years down the road to a team that was really very close to winning the championship this year. So,
Yeah, I mean,
unfortunately, didn't end up working out.
It was ballsy giving that much money to one of them,
Right.
let alone both. But yeah, I mean, they had they were leading division at one point for a little bit. I mean, clearly the moves he made were good for 2032. I don't know if anybody disputed that when people were kind of scoffing at the two deals. I don't think anybody thought it would, it would not be good for this season. I think everybody was like, what's going to happen in 2033 and then 34 basically as it goes on.
Yeah, and I mean, I said 81 to 83 because I'm assuming there's got to be some injury. I mean, you look at everybody's injuries in this current version, and everybody gets more injuries. How are they going to have? You get a guy in the DL for 4 weeks. How do you deal with that? Who do you? You don't even have money to call somebody up. Like even if you have them in the minors, just to call them up, you don't have money for it. That's the toughest part.
Yeah, I'll give myself a little bigger range on saying what they could. I mean, I could see him up to 86, but I could also see him being as low as like 76 or something.
Right. That's
so something like that.
What I was looking at. Just depends on what happens. So volatile, I think, is that the word for them, as we've discussed.
Yeah. Yes.
Yep.
Carolina, it's kind of the next one on the list. You think Aaron's going to try to do something this year, or you think he's going to be patient?
I think he's going to be patient. He's still a year or so away from those top prospects from really kind of filling out. So I'm not sure he's going to go for it yet, unless now if they jump out to a hot start and they're in playoff position come June, July, then I could see him going for it. But I think he'll be patient to start off the season.
He's got the money to make a move if he wants to.
Right.
I don't think, I'm more the newcomer to the league, I guess, than you guys. So I'm still not 100% on everybody's tendencies. Is another guy who Atlantic City should talk to just because of how much money he has freed up and give him a veteran at the head of the rotation to lead Dempster and Perez, and because he's got a lot of good pitching prospects too. Even if he makes that move now for next year and the year after that, like we said, Correa, who's probably not really going to fall off, that could be really good for him, and he can eat that money like it's nothing.
Aaron doesn't have to pay anybody for a while. For 3-4 years,
and he can luck out too with Valerie, that the ankle. I mean, he's still, I guess, he's not as good as when he signed him, but he's not making as much money. But if he has a good year, he can opt out, and then that'll clear money even more for him, so he can take those arbitration hits. So,
yeah, that's true. Josh, right now, if you're listening, get on the horn and go see if you can give Correa away for nothing, because that's true. I mean, you look through 2035 and they don't have to pay anybody through 2035, and they've got $60 million in cap room plus every single year.
Yeah, so you might have to wait till after free agency, because Aaron could just go buy Ed Curry and Moreno and Aichar Ramirez for less than the combined price of those two guys.
Yeah, I would be shocked if Aaron got Moreno. He has so many good first base prospects. I don't think he'll get Moreno, but yeah, there's definitely talent out there that he could be vying for.
Yeah, the guys in free agency aren't exactly what he needs. Do we have a salary floor? Because he has 4 players making $1 million or more, which is incredible, and only 2 making over 1.5 million.
Yeah. No, I don't think we have a salary floor, but because didn't Ron have a salary like this a few years ago with Yellow Springs?
Did he? I don't remember.
Maybe not because of the Rule 6 guy.
Yeah, because of Tuna.
Yeah, Tuna.
So does anybody think Aaron gets to 500 this year?
I think it's possible.
Yeah, if Dempster figures it out, I think they can get up to 500.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a matter of time. It's just when 1 year he's just going to be a beast, and he'll be a beast for 5 to 6 years.
He's like Edgar was for Brandon. You know, there were first couple of seasons he didn't look like he was as good as his rating said, and then suddenly 2021 or 31, he just kind of exploded for Charm City. I think same thing will happen with Dempster. One year you'll look up and he's got a 4.0 ERA, and the next year you'll look up and he's got a 2.5.
Right.
Yeah, I think Kyle's right. If Dempster, but even the guys behind them, Perez, Georges, these young guys with solid potential who are holding their own at a young age. If they, if they kind of stay, get a little better too with Dempster taking his step, for sure they could. He's got decent players on his offense too, potential wise, especially, but they're still underachieving a bit. It wasn't the best offense. He was like 12th last year. So if he can improve the offense a little bit and the rotation can, be a little better, he definitely could.
More or less wraps it up for looking at all the teams in your division. I'll do Halifax in about 20 seconds. They're a tire fire, and Ben has his work cut out for them. And I think they're worse than last year. I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah, a lot of turnover. Just it's good to have somebody who's been in the league before take them over because, he can probably get them back to being respectable, probably not too long. But, yeah, it's just not good now. And it's part of it because of the turnover. I don't think we're going to have time to. I don't know. It's up to you, Ted, with the expansion teams. But I think it's similar to those expansion teams, they had a lot of turnover, I think, except for the other one who almost made the playoffs this year, Twin Cities. I know that's their second GM, but he's been here since then.
Right.
Same thing with Halifax, just a lot of turnover. They just can't get somebody to stay there and put them in a certain direction. They're going in all sorts of directions.
Right, and do the work. The other problem they've had is that all of their tradable veteran assets have lumped. Like, if you could have got something for Contos before he became a very mediocre player, because he was a beast 3-4 years ago.
Yeah, it's too bad that Stelio fell apart like he did. That was their big tradable piece that I can't think of the previous GM's name. That bogus trade that he made. That was the big part of that trade was Contos, who was that one good player that they picked up. And then he just kind of fell apart out of nowhere. So that's too bad, because that was their trade piece. They do have a decent outfielder.
No, they don't.
I thought they did, or did he? Did he leave in free agency? He left in free agency, didn't he?
Wyatt. He went to free agency and lumped his contact.
Yeah, I mean he has no contact, but a center fielder that can hit 40 home runs. So. Yeah, that's they're not good. Hasn't Sean been the only GM in Phoenix?
Yes, no, the other two.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I was wrong on that.
No,
yeah, Edmonton's had a lot of turnover, but
Sean's problem is he's impatient. That's really it, and he's going to be fine. Like if you look at, we can just segue into this. Unless you guys got to go because we can wrap it up or
no.
Go a little.
No, we can. I'll talk as long as you want, Ted.
Yeah, I'm good.
So. We can move right into this then. Phoenix actually looks good, and the Jail Southern is going to be wide open pretty soon. The Recht is too good for his team to not be competitive. I don't honestly know how he does it, but San Antonio's pitching is old. They're going to have to take, in a couple of years, they're going to be in trouble. Havana's on the way up, but New Orleans isn't as good as they used to be. They've got some good young players and got killed with injuries.
Yeah, they got ravaged last year.
Yeah, but Phoenix is in good shape. Like this, despite Marco trying to win when maybe someone would say he shouldn't have, he's still got good young parts coming up. Like he did it without sacrificing too much future.
hmm
Because you got
They they kind of surprised me. They kind of surprised me with how bad they were last year. Just because, um, like you said, they got some solid players and they got some good prospects coming up. Um, like on paper, they should have been better than 66 wins. I feel like maybe one of you guys can tell me I'm wrong, but just looking at them, I feel like they should have been better than 66 wins. So I'm not sure what exactly happened with him, but like you said, he's got Fu Yong, who had a nice debut. I don't know if he's quite ready yet, but I think you might throw him in based on how he did. I wouldn't have a problem with it. It was a nice debut. He's just, Winston is another guy, like, is probably one of the best players in the league. We were talking about Nora earlier, but Winston is very, very good.
Yeah, Winston is a stud, and Mario Diortez is going to be a very good hitter soon too.
Right, and they've got Gordon at first, who's not amazing, but a good complementary player. Andres Martinez. They're going to have like 6 players with 9 or 10 power. They're just going to hit home runs like it's cool.
Yeah, and Ignacio's a good number 1 pitcher too. I mean, he'll give up home runs, but that's a very good number 1 pitcher.
And they've got some bullpen parts. And there's some pitching on the way, I think. Yeah, like Bob Corrigan and Alexander Renard are going to be here in a year or two. So when those guys show up, I think Phoenix is going to be in pretty good shape. And I would say out of the group of the expansion teams, they're the next one to kind of make an impact. But I think the Twin Cities are already there.
Yeah. Twin Cities really shocked me. I looked at their prospects not long ago, and it was just they have a ton of talent. I really thought like 2 years ago they didn't have much of anything, and all of a sudden they've got tons of talent coming up. So they're going to be really difficult to deal with for all of those guys. Louisville and Yellow Springs and the Madison. That's going to be really a difficult team for them to compete with, I think, going forward. But I think you got it right, Ted. The Johnson League, what is that? Atlantic is going to be there for the taking. I think that second playoff position is going to be very fluid over the next few years. So you could.
Right.
What's that? Oh, I said not Atlantic. The Southern. I really think that one's going to be. You're going to have 2 or 3 different teams make the playoffs behind Las Vegas over the next couple of years. So Phoenix could easily jump up and grab one of those playoff positions.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying. And I don't honestly think that anyone's going to be Twin Cities in a couple of years. Because if you look at their top pitching prospects, you got Chris Kelly, Josh Brown, Alvarado, and Vladimir Ryko, all of whom are about a year away. That's disgusting. In addition to, they've already got a couple guys in Rayner and Stewart who are all right, and they've got some relief pitchers. I mean, that's a good team.
Do you really think Alvarado's going to be a starting pitcher though?
I think so.
He's got a 5 potential changeup. And it's only at 2.
Whoops! I thought it would gotten higher. No, you're right. Maybe not. But
that's the problem.
Then he's just another good reliever. Offensively, Twin Cities has Chris Limon was at one point the top-rated prospect in the league, which just goes to show you how bad the OSA scouting system is. But he's still a good player.
He took a big step last year.
Yeah, and they got guys like Cooper and Harsnett. Mark Wareham is a phenomenal shortstop. It just makes me sick looking at the guy. I never get players like this. It's just frustrating. And then I guess moving on, none the last expansion teams, and nowhere near the least is Edmonton. They're nobody on their active roster is like worth talking about. I don't think at all, which is somewhat depressing. But they've got a good little stable going down in the minors, and I think they're going to be relevant in a few seasons, maybe even only one or two.
Yeah, they're going to take a couple years for sure. I misspoke with the turnover because, thinking about it, I guess this is the one expansion-wise that has had a ton of turnover. They've had like
Right.
3 or 4 GMs, I think.
Right.
But yeah, like you said, they got some good prospects in their system, but these are guys that are also further away. Some of their better ones. I mean, Lynch could be soon, but like Costello and how would you even say that? Rimple, I guess, or however you say that. Both guys that are probably 3 or 4 years away.
Yeah, they don't really have the pitching depth as some of you other guys. Manso could be okay, Morin could be okay, but they need a little bit more work. But again, they're looking good. Like, for 4 years in, this isn't the worst group of expansion franchises I've ever seen.
No, they got some guys that they can build on in a few seasons. They look like they just went for guys, drafts. This guys that are going to take a little longer than others, which is fine. But yeah, like you said, it's not terrible. They could probably be in a better position, but they could definitely be a hell of a lot worse.
Right.
Yeah, I hope the other Brandon sticks it out. He's done a pretty good job in the league that I GM, rebuilding a team. It's a completely different setup with so many fewer teams, but I think he can do a good job if he's able to stick with it and put the effort into it that it takes, like he did with the other team. I think he's got some ability, so I really hope that he's able to make it work in Edmonton. You hate seeing that expansion team kind of flounder like they have.
Yeah, and we touched on with Halifax, but you just keep having a revolving door at GM and you don't get anywhere. There's just no direction. But there's another team with a $42 million payroll, and they should sign someone and trade them, and that should be their goal every year for 2 or 3 seasons.
Yeah, I mean, if I was running Edmonton, I would probably sign one guy to a decent contract, and I would just be scooping up every single person I could for $2 million and under, and just hope that a couple of them hit, and you trade them for something.
Right.
I did that with Greenville to mixed success. Picked up like Captain Kidd and Boys Etna and guys like that, and traded them for middling prospects. But I mean, you got to get some depth somewhere.
Yeah, and you got to fill a roster out. I mean, Ron's one of those guys. I don't know how much you talk to him, but he's always going on about. You read the team news, that one of the billions he posts, and it's always about the guy with a bunch of 6s and 5s that's giving him 200 at bats here or 50 innings there, and those guys make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think we've covered just about everything we've set out to. Thanks, Tyler and Brandon, for taking the time to be here. I hope you guys had fun.
Yeah, cool. I had a good time.
Yeah, it was a blast.
All right, well, thanks again, and maybe I'm sure I'll have you guys back sometime.